Hi friends, welcome to our living room here at the Buffalo Stone Cottage, and welcome to the next installment in the Our Story series. It's been a year since I did any of these videos. This time last year, you may remember, I put together a 6-part video series all about the White Buffalo story, the adventure that we've been on to renovate and pay off our enormous student debt, and also how the blog was born. Just really caught you guys up on our family adventure to that point and what our vision was going forward. And I'm so excited to share the next installment with you today. While I do have some news to share, this video is mainly going to be kind of providing some background information on what our vision is now, so that our story going forward as I share those pieces is going to make more sense to you guys. And I hope that this piece will be inspiring to you as well. Really quickly, let's do a very short recap on our story so far. You may remember that Chris and I met at a very expensive but awesome private university and came out of that in love and getting married, but drowning in college debt. That was exciting to two people who did not know what we wanted to do with our life yet, but also were not making very much at the current jobs that we had. But God started to give us vision for what we wanted our family to be. We knew that we wanted me to be home with our kids and hopefully doing a creative job along with that, like I am really blessed to do now, but that the kids were the focus of my time. And we also wanted flexibility, like if we wanted to homeschool one day, if we wanted to adopt. We aren't sure what any of those things are going to look like, but we wanted the option. And the crippling amount of debt that we were under felt like we did not have it. And so you will remember our first house, which was an old frat house that we got. We thought we'd be in forever, and we fell in love with renovating together there. And that sparked this vision to renovate a house, move into it, sell it 2 years later, and do it all over again. And every time we sell, we've been able to chunk some of that profit onto debt. You may remember that selling our last house, the Buffalo Bungalow, which was close to 2,000 square feet, was much bigger than our current tiny, sweet little house. You may remember that selling that and making this move, as I shared in the White Buffalo Story series, paid off the college debt. That put the final nail in that coffin. That was the third house that we had flipped, and that was such an amazing thing for us. I can't even tell you guys how amazing that was to see that taken care of. And for us, you'll remember that's a lot of the reason that we downsized on this journey. When we first got a lead on this house, none of the houses that we've bought have really been listed. We've gotten leads because we're in an investment area downtown. When we first got a lead on this house, we knew that it was 1,100 square feet, a 2-1, and we had just had Dax. We had just had the 4th member of our family. And our initial immediate plan was we would be adding on to the back. We'd be adding a master suite and making it a 3-2. We knew that those do super well in our area and that 2-1s are not nearly as good of an investment. Even though they're cheaper, they just don't make nearly what a 3-2 does. So 3-2 is really the sweet spot of our neighborhood. That was our plan. And then quickly we ran the numbers and realized if we could make this work for a season, what we would make from selling the Buffalo Bungalow versus what we would save on not adding on here, we would be able to pay off the student debt. And that was totally worth it, you guys, to have that part of our story done, to be able to then look ahead. So I said in Our Story video series 2 that this past year was our 7th year of marriage. And that was such a powerful symbol for us, that just such a sweet gift that God gave us, showing us that He's written this and He's in charge of this. As you may remember from the story series, or you may know from the Bible if you've read about that, the number 7 is very powerful. The 7th year is a very powerful thing in the Bible. When debts are forgiven, it is the year of rest. It is the year you let fields rest when planting. For us, that developed such beautiful symbolism that God took care of our student debt that we thought would take 30 years in 7. And then the 7th year for us in this tiny, sweet little house was about rest. And it was about gearing up for the future and figuring out what we wanted our life to look like here on out. For 7 years, we've been totally focused on pay off debt, pay off debt, pay off debt, and survive. And now it's like, okay, what's next for us now that God has so clearly taken care of that? I want to say, I know I said this a bunch in our story series. I've got to quickly reiterate it again, that God is writing this story, you guys, before I go any further. He is so writing this story. We never could have done this ourselves. He's given us these gifts that when we got married, we didn't even know we had, much less shared, much less that this renovation adventure would like set our souls on fire together. I mean, what are the odds of that? I don't know how many couples have said, I would be divorced if I did what you guys did. And I totally recognize that. We're all created differently with different gifts, and God so clearly has given us these. But throughout the entire journey, how we would get houses, what they ended up selling for, the time it hit with the market was so clearly God lining things up for us because he had a bigger plan in mind. And I just have to reiterate that again, that this is not us, that this is him for a bigger purpose. You may remember from the Our Story series that I did, I talked about Dave Ramsey quite a bit. We did his Financial Peace University when we were engaged, and when we were drowning under all this debt and had no way out that we saw. We trusted kind of that God would provide. We should have trusted more, but it was hard to trust that at times with the mountain that we were under. But God was still faithful to us and brought us out of that. But Dave Ramsey has played a huge part in our story, and just his whole mindset to live like no one else so that one day you can live like no one else. Live like no one else so that one day you can give like no one else. And for us, that has been so true and has been some of our guiding vision. And what he means by that is live like no one else now, as in sacrifice more than other people will understand. And one day that will free you up from debt and will allow you to live like no one else and give like no one else. And so for us, our journey has been filled with sacrifice. And that is one thing I want to say up front, that I think it can be really easy to look from the outside and see like, man, they get to renovate kitchens and bathrooms and do all of this stuff over and over and over again, and I can't do any of that. And I want to be clear about that for us, this journey is about income and investment potential. Flipping houses has become a significant part of our family income. It has become a business for us. And so for us, while we are renovate, we love this, and it is a hobby for us, and we enjoy it. And I love designing spaces. We are designing with neighborhood standard in mind and selling and investment potential in mind, knowing that this is a business that we are investing in and we're going to be paid back on the back end. And for us, there are other ways that we spend more than other families, and there's ways that we spend way less. And for every family, that's going to, what sacrifice looks like to you is going to look different. You have to establish your priorities, and then that will show you areas that you can sacrifice. For example, for us, eating healthy organic food is one of the most important things to us. And so do we spend more on food than some other families? Yes. But we're okay with that because that is a huge priority for our family. Traveling and giving ourselves and our kids an understanding of the world that God created, giving them a compassion for all of his different people, seeing his creation, that is all very important to us. And it's not for others. So that is something that we choose to spend money on from time to time. But for us, there are other areas that we don't spend as much on. For example, cars. Y'all, I'm going to just tell you, my car that I'm currently driving is 17 years old. And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm totally okay with that. I have no problem with that. But everybody doesn't make that same decision. And so for every family, it kind of balances out. And sacrifice looks different for every family. For all of the renovations that we have done, we've been very creative with our financing. We've used equity lines. We've used 0% interest credit cards. We've financed entire renovations on credit cards, which, little tip for the travelers out there, that is how we're able to take a lot of the trips that we do, is because of that. And then we use equity lines to pay it off. But what that means is that there's often this little season where everything's not quite lining up. We're coming down to the wire and things get pretty tight. And I can still remember, you guys, my husband does not care about stuff. He never has. He doesn't, no, he's a minimalist to a T. But his whole life, y'all, he has dreamed of having a Jeep. And we found a used one early on in our marriage. He had a work truck that he couldn't drive after hours, and he didn't have another car. We actually had an accident, was totaled. Anyway, what he decided to get, since he had that work truck, was an old Jeep that was not very expensive, but he loved that Jeep, and he spent time fixing it up, and we would ride it around, and we loved it. And I still remember with the Buffalo Bungalow when things came down to the wire and it just was not all lining up. And he had to sell that Jeep so that we could make ends meet. And I remember being so sad for him, and he was really sad. But I still remember he told me that day, Lindsay, like, one day we will be financially independent and I will save and I'll buy another Jeep. It's not a big deal. Right now, this is what we need for the long-term vision. And he has continually reminded me of that and pointed me back to that when I have questioned and doubted, because sacrifice is worth it, you guys. So a lot of you have asked about budgeting and what we sacrificed and how we got to the point that we are debt-wise. And so that is something that I did want to share, that for everybody it looks different. So take a look at your life, and there may be priorities that you are going to choose to spend more on, and you're okay with that because they are a part of your family vision. But then there's going to be other areas that you can choose to cut. Like, we don't have TV. We don't have a TV bill that a lot of people spend $150 a month on, as another example. So look critically at your own life and priorities and preferences, and I think that those things will arise. So now, moving forward, we've paid off that debt. What does it look like moving forward? We have had this last year to really rest and relax, which for us, that means dreaming and scheming and looking ahead for our family vision and what do we want. And what it all comes back to for us is what Dave Ramsey was talking about when he says live like no one else, is this idea of financial independence. You'll hear people say financial freedom, financial independence. What does that mean? Well, here's what we have come to understand that means, and this is what is going to be shaping our decisions going forward. I've said often that this last house was a turning point for us. It paid off our debt. It got us to the point that we can now look ahead and do something different from here on out. And I've had people say, oh, you got out of debt, so you're just going to like stop renovating and stay where you are. And y'all, that's not us. Like, this has borne such an incredible dream and adventure in our hearts. We don't feel ready to let go of that and just totally settle. One day I think that we will. I think we totally will. We crave that, and we'll likely be renovating in other ways. But for now, that is not the plan. And so what does this idea of financial independence look like, and how are we choosing to tackle it as a family? Well, really quickly, I need to break down a term for you that I have learned in the last few years. That is residual income. Dave Ramsey talks about this idea, and we've heard it on a lot of like build wealth talks on the radio and stuff like that. Not that that's something that we are pursuing. Our goal is not build wealth, which you'll hear more about in a second. But on all of those talks, they talk about that most wealthy people in the world have some form of residual income. And what does that mean? That means that you create something one time and you're paid on it forever. And I think residual income can get a really bad rap because some people think, oh, that's cheating. You're not showing up to a 9-to-5 job getting a paycheck. No, it's not. You're working really, really hard on the front end. You're investing time, maybe money, maybe years of your life to build something one time, and then you're paid on it forever. So an example of that is like an author who works really hard to write a book. It is their life's work. It might take them a year, it might take them 10, but they write one book. And then if it's published, they're paid on it forever. So they created something once, they're paid on it forever. And so for us, that has been something that we have really in the last year or two started pursuing as a family, this idea of residual income. So for us, financial independence does not mean that. I feel like that could sound like wealth and luxury and as much money to just throw around on whatever you want. And that, you guys, could not be farther from the vision. For us to be financially independent, what that looks like is having our monthly expenses absolutely as low as possible, and then having residual income that pays those monthly expenses so that we as a family are freed up to do a lot of different things that I'll get to in a second. So for us, that is paying off all the student debt, so that monthly expense is now gone. We are working toward paying off our mortgage. Our selling the last house and doing this one so cheaply, I don't know that I've shared this, but it did more than pay off our student debt. It also paid off a large chunk of our mortgage on this house. And so for us now, we're trying to pay that off as well. And the other ways, no car payments, no TV payment, like lots of things. We are streamlining our monthly expenses. We're big on simple living, so we definitely purchase good, high quality items from time to time. But we aren't doing a lot of monthly purchases on clothes or home things or any of that. We've streamlined a lot of that. So we're getting our monthly expenses as low as possible. And then now we are trying to get residual income in place to cover those monthly expenses. What does that look like? How are we doing that? Well, one of the first ways is from my business. For years now, and we didn't even really realize it in the beginning, and now we've come to see what a huge gift it is. My business with the blog and my oil business that are kind of one package for me, both of those are forms of residual income that I am writing a piece of content once and I am paid on that later. I am creating and building a brand that even if I have to take a break to have a baby, to an extent, it keeps itself going and I still receive an income. Now, if I put more time to it, that income will increase. Obviously, I can't do nothing. But I am paid even if I am not showing up for work that day. And that is a huge piece for us. My oil business functions the exact same way, that I am putting in work on my terms when I have time and I'm paid on it well forever. So both of those are forms of residual income that our family is building and experiencing and focusing on. But another huge way that we are focusing on that is transitioning our thinking on renovation from selling our flips to rentals. So that is our plan that we are going to try going forward, is that one day, we're not there yet, don't worry, but one day when we move on from the Buffalo Stone Cottage, our vision is that this will be a rental for our family that will pay for itself and likely pay for the next house that we're in, and maybe a little bit on top of that. And so we are getting a monthly income from this house that we renovated and flipped one time, and we'll get that monthly income as long as we choose to rent it. If we ever need to sell it or choose to sell it, it has appreciated likely in value, so we'll make more money when we do sell it down the road. So there is a quick look at our long-term vision at this point, and I'll update you as it changes, but that we are going to continue renovating other houses for a season. I feel like we have at least a couple more in us, maybe one, who knows, but at least one more. We're very confident. And this house will be a rental that pays residual income for our family and helps cover our monthly expenses so that we are on our way toward financial independence. And the vision now is if we do that a couple of times, so say that we do that a few more times and we are able to save those as rentals, then a couple of rentals would pay our monthly expenses and have those covered. And so we would be financially independent. That residual income would be paying our monthly bills, and we would be freed up to do a slew of different things. And so what are those different things? I said that a while ago. Basically, we want to be freed up to take risks. We want to have our monthly expenses covered so that we can have whatever God calls, we can quickly act on that in that direction. And for us, that means a lot of different things. It means different things where our dreams and our businesses and our lives are related, but it also means things about our family, like the family culture we want to have where travel is concerned, but also expanding our family. I've mentioned before that adoption is something that's always been on our heart, and that calling has only grown stronger. And while I firmly believe that you can adopt no matter your financial situation, because there's different avenues to do that, and there's fundraisers, there's lots of things that you can do for that. I recognize that 100%. But for us personally, being financially independent or working toward that means that for us that is more easily possible, and it means that we don't have to limit the size of our family for financial reasons. There's lots of other reasons that we will consider when we decide how many children one day that we're going to have, but adopting several children becomes for us a more tangible possibility that creates less stress when we are financially independent. Again, I firmly believe that any calling God places on your life, He will provide ways to get there. And it may not be through being financially independent, but this is what our journey has looked like. So why am I sharing all this? Why am I going so in depth with our finances and things that a lot of people don't talk about? Well, you guys, It's a risk. And why it feels risky to me, and the reason is that anytime you're doing something countercultural and you're sharing about it, you're going to be misunderstood. And other people aren't going to understand and aren't always going to respond well. But this journey that God has sent us on has been life-giving, and the view of what is ahead, of how our family is going to be able to live differently, not extravagantly, but differently and kingdom focused, and doing things we never imagined or dreamed for our children and for the kingdom, that is life-giving to us. And we believe that God has given us this radical story where he paid off an insane amount of debt way quicker than we ever could of ourselves, because that story is meant to be shared, because we believe that there are other people out there who are crippled in debt and financial stress, and God is slowly but surely providing a way out of that so that our family can live freer and more differently and live in his abundance. And we want that for everybody. And so that is why we have chosen to be brave with this story and to share it, knowing that it will be misconstrued and misunderstood by some, is because we believe in it, and we believe that it's a gift that is meant to be shared with others. It is not for ourselves and for our own benefit to just hold tightly and enjoy. It is to be spread out. Okay, so that is some of where we are headed. What does that look like now? I said I had some news for you. This is a bit of hard news for me to share, you guys. I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to tell you why. But we are adding on to the Buffalo Stone Cottage. We are doing an addition, and I feel like that seems like small news in comparison to all of the big new house announcements we've done. But here's why we are doing that. I told you initially that was our plan for this house, and we decided to live small for a season to save. And our plan at that point was that we would one day add on after we moved out. I did not want to deal with an addition and contractors in and out and all that while I was living here day in and day out with Gracie and 2 babies. But we knew that one day we would add on, because again, all that talk I just did about investment potential and all of that, in our neighborhood, a 3-2 is the sweet spot. A 2-1 is not a great investment compared to a 3-2. And so we knew that it would be stupid of us to not make it a 3-2 before we one day sold or rented it, but we were going to do that after we moved on. Well, we started getting things in place to look for the next house, and again, I shared that we do that through equity lines and credit cards and all of that, which all of that depends on appraisal value. And we realized that for what our vision is, in many ways, we need the equity appraisable value of a 3-2 now before we do the next project. We can't wait until we do the next project to add a 3-2 here, because we need this house to appraise for more so that we can have a larger equity line to do the next house, to make this a rental, to get that residual income towards financial independence. All that piece I just told you, it all hinges on us making this house a 3-2 now. So I said that I struggled with that. I have struggled with this a lot because I don't want to deal with the renovation. I am being totally honest here, you guys. We've started, our house is dirty, there's contractors in and out, and Gracie can't go to the backyard. It's not fun. It's first world problems, and I totally recognize that, but it has not been an easy journey so far, and I did not want to deal with that. But also, I did not want to announce to you guys that we were adding on to this house while we lived here, because the people pleaser in me felt like that would be not well received, because I've talked so much about living small, and I've always said that this was for a season. And for us, the size of this house was for financial reasons, and the outcome of that is it has given us the most beautiful view of simple living and streamlining our stuff and all of those things that to us is fairly separate from the size of a house. I know that one day we will have a larger family and we will have a bigger house, but at this season, this felt so right for us. And so in some ways it feels wrong to add on. But that is why I wanted to share pieces of this story, so that you guys can not hear about it on the back end, but that you can be a more active participant as our story toward financial independence and living radically unfolds, that you can be a participant in that story and that you can understand where we're headed, because I hope and I pray that it will inspire some of your stories to think differently about the circumstances that you are living in, and that you are things that you're pursuing to pay off debt and whatever it may be, to look at things and think critically and creatively. So for us, we are adding on strictly for investment potential and for income reasons that our family needs, for what our vision, long-term vision is. So again, it's been a struggle, but it's something that we are getting excited about, that however long we're here, whether it's another year or several years, we will enjoy it more. We are looking to expand our family in the near future. And so for us, having an additional bedroom will help if we have 3 kids in a 1,000-square-foot house with 2 beds and 1 bath. So it is a good thing, and I am adjusting, and I am excited to share this journey with you guys. Thank y'all so much for listening to this piece of our story. I feel like this one has been a bit rambly, where I'm giving you lots of background information, but like I said, I want to give you insight into the story that God is writing in our hearts so that you can follow along in real time with us. In the past, I feel like I've kept things a little closer to the vest, and I've shared after the fact. And I want you guys to be an active participant in this, and that as God is doing big things, that we can continue to share that. Because as I keep saying, I'm going to say it one more time, I truly believe this story was not given to us for ourselves. God wrote this story because there are people out there, I firmly believe, who need to hear it. We are going to benefit from it as a family, but I believe more than anything that there are people out there who need to know that there is hope, that they can look at their situation and think differently and creatively, and that they can move to a place of freedom and abundance in Jesus that He intends for us. So thank y'all for following along with this journey. Y'all are amazing. I cannot wait to walk you through the whole thing.